Hi. All right. This is the fourth recording. I'm going to stick to this one. Welcome to my 30-day unmasking challenge. I am going to try my best to unmask and show you how I am going to go from day one, which is me today. I started planning on doing this challenge like 4 days ago. And I could say I am finally ready to start my filming of my 30-day unmasking challenge. Let me share with you and show you what I've got. So here is an outline of what I am planning on doing. I know this is it kind of feels like a lecture, but I'm not trying to be, but that's how I know, so I guess. So for week one, I'm going to start with this first video, Discover My Stim. And it's going to be a 30-day challenge. I will share this with you if that's something that's going to be helpful for you. So today I am going to start with Discover My Stim. And this is based on something that I came across while doing my research for thought plot. I didn't finish watching this video, but I watched some of the other videos and I find it very interesting. So I went ahead and purchased this workbook that he put on Etsy, and I, for today, a masking challenge. I'm going to first focus on discover my sin. I am going to switch to my iPad screen here and I'm going to show you how I am going to do this. I I took a look at this for a bit, but I didn't watch the video yet. I thought I would just like to record myself working through this worksheet with you. So let's get started. It starts with this five senses. It does remind me of what I had learned back in my undergrad years at UCLA. I studied neuroscience. In hindsight, that's also the reason why I was fascinated by this subject. I didn't really fully acknowledge my autistic identity until I graduated. The reason being, there wasn't much discussion on neurodiversity at the time when I was still in undergrad, which was 2019, 2020. So it's been a while. Uh, a lot of the materials that I came across they all talk about how stimming is related to regulating senses. So I thought this is very cool that she had categorized her uncover your STEM worksheet into hypersensitivity and hyposensitivity. I am not going to read this out here, but let's see. Smell. Or maybe I'll just read it. read this out loud. Hypersensitivity is a hyperreaction or overreaction to sensory stimuli. Hypersensitivity is evident when you have an extreme reaction to the sensory input in your environment. Difficult behavior or volatile emotions may be a response to light, sounds, smells, and touch. Natural sensory input that sends your nervous system into overdrive. Some of the most common problems autistic individuals experience are either hyper or hyposensitive to sensory stimuli. Their senses seem to be too acute, hypersensitivity, or not working at all, hyposensitivity. Hyposensitivity occurs when an individual displays an undersensitive reaction to sensory stimulation. It's entirely possible for a person to display hypersensitivity in some contexts and hyposensitivity in others. Hyposensitivity is often evident when there is extreme sensory seeking behavior to compensate for feeling underwhelmed. So, my understanding of this is that hypersensitivity is when there is too much sensory stimuli. Hyposensitivity is when there is too little. So now let's go through this one by one. For smell, discomforts and comforts. What kind of smell gives me? What kind of smell is too much for me? What kind of smell do I seek? I'm going to answer. I'm going to mm, what kind of smell? Um, this is I wanted to say this is probably the case for everybody, but I guess I strongly detest body odor too, like the thought spot had shared. And I guess I would say I personally feel like I have a very strong, very strong sense, a very strong sense of smell. Um, so what brings me comfort, I guess, a lack of smell and good food. Okay, so for visual, what is too much for me and what is not enough? Visual, I guess, when things become very cluttered, I tend to start to ignore. I guess my brain just stops processing the clutter. So I would say clutter does cause me discomfort. And I do think I'm a very visual person. So what brings me comfort? Primary colors and aesthetical scenes. Aesthetics. Mm, for tactile discomforts and comforts, I I guess I would immediately think of the fact that I what really bothers me as a woman is to, well, I I'll just write it. I don't even want to read this out loud. Or I really don't like this. This is an aspect of being a woman that really sensory overload. Tags on clothes. What is comfortable for me is soft textures. So I guess that could also be like humans or pet. Like, I feel like this is the reason why I actually kind of like it when someone is chubby, because I do like to grab soft things. Next, hearing. Well, I'm super sensitive to noise. So I guess I really hate noise. This is why I'm wearing a headphone right now on top of a cap, because I'm filming in a phone booth and it's really loud. Noise. I really hate noise. Like, also, I get distracted by noise easily. It's like I can barely focus on my own thought. Like, when right now I'm working in a co-work space, so I'm sharing space with others. So what often happens, and actually happens on a daily basis, that my co-work space co-workers will be making calls or Zoom calls by not going to a phone booth like I am doing now. And that's actually extremely distracting because I feel like I'm just extra sensitive to audio information. So when they're talking, it's like that's all I could focus on. So that's very challenging. And also when I'm actually sharing space with some people that I know who really like to, there are people I feel like they tend to seek audio stimulations. So they really like to play everything out loud and they tend to always have some background noise um, in their in every single waking moment. But I feel like I'm the opposite of that, where I really actually just need very quiet. Like, what gives me comfort, I would say, is probably silence. Of course, good music too. I like I like Lana Del Rey. I like Taylor Swift. I like classical music too. I like music, although I haven't really been listening to music for a while. Next, taste. Mm, I do feel like I am someone who tend to be hypersensitive to taste. I, for this reason, I'm actually very good at cooking. So, is there something that, I guess, spicy food? I'm not really a good fan of spicy food. It kind of, I, and sparkling water. I don't like these kind of, I don't like to feel, I don't enjoy sparkling water. I feel like people who enjoy sparkling water are probably tend to be sensory seeking when it comes to taste. Comfort, I like soft texture. I like any cream product because I think it has that smooth texture that I like. Lipids, fat. I feel like these are what brings me comfort taste wise. But I think occasionally I also love to have crunchy food. I don't know if that's how I regulate my my hearing through taste, because sometimes I feel like I just really like to have that crunchy noise and the crunch, even though I hate noise. So I guess that's kind of task I avoid. What tasks do I avoid? I avoid chores. I never liked chores, and I feel really bad to say this, but I really have a problem with chores. I think it's because a lot of things are just so heavy, and I mean, I've had jobs where I have to do heavy lifting, but I would avoid it if I could. And I know I've been avoiding doing chores. I don't, I really don't like doing laundry either. And I do feel bad for saying this because a lot of the times I feel like as a woman, people really do expect me to do more domestic chores or laundries, but these are really just things that I avoid. But I'm actually all right with cooking. I do enjoy cooking. I think with chores and laundry, it's really the heavy lifting aspect and moving around aspect that I don't like. I don't like to move bulky objects around the apartment. It's really draining and I sweat so easily. I don't know if that's because I hyperventilate, but senses. Okay. Do I avoid any senses? I do I avoid any senses? I guess heavy lifting. I'm except for when I'm at the gym, I know I have to do it. That's why I would use some heavy lifting there. But mm, I'm not really someone who enjoys heavy lifting. I mean, I don't think anybody would enjoy it, but yeah, tasks I enjoy. What tasks do I enjoy? I, well, tasks that I enjoy: sitting, meditating. I feel like I do enjoy activities that doesn't require a lot of moving around. But I do enjoy occasionally doing some light exercise. I like breeze, light. I would say light activity, but I would avoid things that would cause me to sweat. Senses, breeze, air, anything gentle. Stimming, understanding stimming. Stimming is characterized repetitive motions that you may use to help you cope with emotions. Stims may help to distract you, relieve stress, or calm you down. Some reasons why people stim stimulates the senses or decrease sensory overload, adapt to an unfamiliar environment, reduce anxiety and calm themselves, express frustrations, especially if they have trouble communicating effectively, avoid certain activities or expectations. I have been doing some research on STEM previously, and also it does take me some time to reflect on these things. And the first time I learned about STEMing, I would say it's that's like around 2019-ish. When I first learned about autism and STEMing, I didn't really think that I do anything like that. And I think it's because I have been masking my STEM for so long. And masking STEM is a very frequent thing that happens to people who are masked autistic adults or people who didn't get diagnosed until they're really old. So they kind of develop this kind of camouflaging habit in order to blend into the neurotypical populations. And these kind of things lead to burnout. So as I am becoming more aware of my autistic self, it 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 did take me some time to know what my stims are. Like earlier today, when I was in the college space, I just there are more people today than normally there are, and I just felt very uncomfortable, like I couldn't be myself because I know like there are eyes all around me. I couldn't really just stim like I normally can when I'm alone. And I think what I would like to do is to just, I do enjoy moving my bodies. Like I do this too with this, whatever. I mean, the, what else? I I like to do this. I like to do this. I guess I can clap my hands. I do like doing this too, but I know this makes me look so weird that I really just try not to do this. So what I do in the office when there are other people around me is like I just tend to stretch. Like that's kind of my way of disguising my stim. Uh, or eating chips. I think eating chips is probably like I feel like that kind of helps me. That's kind of like a sensory seeking behavior. Um, or I also notice when I'm talking to people, especially people who talk very, very fast, and I really need to concentrate on what they're saying, what I usually would do is I would close my eyes and I would start to massage my head in order to focus on what they're saying. So it would just look like me massaging my head and listening to them. I guess that's kind of like how I disguise my stim. And of course, when I was younger, I liked to shake my legs a lot, but I would get caught out on shaking my leg, and they would tell me that it's bad. That is so. I just I kind of stopped doing it. So the last page. Now we're at the last page. Stim's situation and accommodation. There's work. It's very challenging. A co-work space. I feel like it would be challenging in any workspace in general. And co-work space, I imagine, is probably slightly better than other more traditional workspace. Accommodation. I feel like having a phone booth like this, like what I have now, it's actually kind of helpful because it's like a very, it's almost like a sensory corner. Even though when I come here to film something or to talk, I usually, I guess, when I try something for the first time, I just feel very, very self-conscious. So it did take me some time to even make it to the phone booth to start opening up and trying to unwind, unmask, be myself, be open. So these things take a lot of courage, especially when you're a late, I wouldn't say late diagnosed adult, because I'm still working towards a licensed therapist diagnosis. I really hope this could happen by the end of this year or in 2024. And so this almost concludes the first day of my 30-day unmasking challenge. Except for I do want to show one more thing. I was doing a bit of research earlier today, trying to see what research paper I could find on masking. There are some ones that I was looking at. Um, this one from 2019, people should be allowed to do what they like. Autistic adults use and experiences of stimming. So there is, I feel like, okay, let me together myself. There are some progressive research articles that try to look at stimming from the perspective of autistic people. This article is an example that interviewed 32 autistic adults and asked them to share their perceptions and experiences of stimming. And they find two things of the purpose that stimming serves. One, a self-regulatory mechanism. Two, another, I guess, general thing, feedback they concluded from autistic people that they had interviewed is a lacking in social acceptance, which is very, very true. I found another article titled Stimming Repetitive Movements as People with Autism Are Essential Coping Mechanisms. In this article, it actually mentioned by Dr. Hanks in the article that sometimes they would come across parents who would like their kids to do less of stimming. And that's very concerning. Also mentioned a 2019 survey of autistic adults on autism spectrum. 80% of them said stimming reduced their anxiety and helped them calm down. And then 70% has been told at some point in their life to not engage in this behavior. And another thing I would like to share is this one. There is a research article from 2023 called Repetitive Behaviors in Autistic and Non-Autistic Adults, Associations with Sensory Sensitivity and Impact on Self-Efficacy. So this one, in this article, they actually did a research on both autistic, undiagnosed autistic, and non-autistic people. And they find that both autistic people and non-autistic people engage in stimming behavior. But when you ask them to stop themselves from stimming, it actually negatively impacts autistic people more than non-autistic people. Let me show you where it says that when people were able to stim, no difference between groups were observed on self-efficacy ratings. However, when unable to stim off, people reported lower self-efficacy than non-autistic people. So the impact of asking autistic people to stop themselves from stimming is a much greater impact than asking a non-autistic people to stop themselves from stimming. That to me makes perfect sense. We stim as a way to regulate our senses. It's kind of like something that we just have to do. It's a need for us. That's why there is an article that's saying repetitive movements that people with autism are essential coping mechanisms. But then there are indeed many people in the society who are, like even some parents, I guess, they would just like their kids or autistic people to stop themselves from spending, likely because it would make them feel uncomfortable, I imagine. Before I started recording this, I was looking into this article. I guess this is the topic of another video, but there are a lot of people who have been focusing on trying to identify problems that causes these so-called stereotypy behavior, repetitive stereotyped behavior in autistic people, and trying to change that with drugs, pharmacological interventions. And this is an example of a research done by so-called scientists who form all kinds of theories on the pathogenesis of autism spectrum disorder. So they are looking at autism from a disease perspective, and this one specifically focused on the role of D2 and D3 receptors, which are dopamine receptors in the brain. So they're thinking of
the potential of targeting those receptors with drugs to stop autistic people from the so-called stereotypes or repetitive behaviors. I was very frustrated by this. I spent probably like 20, 30 minutes looking at this article, and I was trying to, in my mind, I was trying to formulate an argument to share with you on how terrible it is. But I guess I just talked about it very briefly. But I guess my point is, if we can regulate ourselves by doing whatever repetitive behaviors that soothe us, just let us do it. If you feel uncomfortable, I guess you could leave. It's, I mean, as long as we're not bothering anybody, there are people who are, there are autistic people who, like this one here, trying to evolve Simi over time to more socially acceptable behaviors. Like this girl, non on, is talking about on autism state that over time she had evolved her. I mean, even that to me, I feel like this is really there. We are all doing a lot for the neurotypical society, but yeah, I guess I do feel a lot of frustration in this. But coming back to the last, oh, just through my pen.
Um, Coming back to the last page, I guess accommodation. I know for me personally, what I really need to do is to speak up. But I know that's going to be a very tough thing for me to do. But that's something I would like to work towards. In my 30-day unmasking challenge, I would like to gradually, over time, work myself, work my courage up to a place where I could speak up and ask for accommodations, whether it is at work or in a supermarket or at school. I can't really think of something right now in terms of accommodations. I guess trying to stim by stretching would be a good example of how I can be more socially acceptable. But besides that, I guess what I could do or what we can do is to work, is to simply, I guess, advocate for ourselves, to work our courage up to a place where we can speak up and ask for the accommodations we need, or to explain or educate the neurotypical population. And that concludes my Thursday.